GM. Good to be back. Sorry to anybody that actually spent some time and hopped on those audio tests earlier. Dude, I swear I thought I figured something out different for connecting the Rodecaster Pro 2 to Spaces. And it did not work at all. So that's unfortunate. But, I have everything set up on the streaming side of things, which is pretty good. So getting that kicked off, gonna start doing that regularly again coming up here this next week. So, yeah, good to be back. Good to get back into the groove of things. Was on the road a lot past 7 days. So, yeah, a little bit out of tune with some of the stuff going on, but still have a good idea of a lot of the other stuff. If you guys are in the audience, feel free to go ahead, hit that request button. It's always more fun when more of you guys come up here. Fiji, good to have you back up, man. How's it going? How's it been?
Good, man. Good Friday. How's the ankle?
Dude, the ankle's doing better. You know the dangerous thing about it? So I have been moving on the ankle since I injured it, right? And, like, that's good. That's healthy. I think that you heal a lot faster if you do that. I always have personally, rather than, resting it too much, letting it get stiff. But the dangerous part is because I'm moving so well on it, I already feel like I can go out there. I'm so tempted to go out there and already start playing and stuff again. So, it's the downside of it.
Yeah, man, that's dangerous.
I know. But it's all good. I appreciate you asking. What what all's going on with you, man?
Oh, not much, man. Staying busy. Keeping my head up. It's kind of boring in the cryptoverse at the moment. Um, yeah, man, just trying to stack cash, stack them wonkies, and yeah, keep at it.
Love to hear it, man. So I'm curious. I kind of feel you on the boring part a little bit, where there we had a few weeks of interesting fun with the meme coin stuff. It kind of gave people a little distraction for a minute, but inevitably, and it's one of the things that I talked about with Rooster the past few weeks, that fade or that hype kind of fades out, and on the other side of it, it doesn't lead to this immediate boom, say in NFTs or any other sector. So I'm curious on your side of things, what are you doing to kill the time, man? Like here in the meantime, while we are in this stretch, what's your go-to to, kind of just stay in a routine?
I think just keep an eye on some certain charts and metrics that I like to check in on like the daily or weekly basis, just to kind of see where we're at in the whole spectrum of things. Um, I kind of try to position myself as well for like, if we do have a lower leg down, like kind of theoretically position myself on what I would want to buy in that moment. Um, and I think that's pretty much it. It's tough, but I try to look like a year ahead, you know, 6 months to a year ahead, kind of to see where I want to be in that time frame, and kind of just stick with that really.
I respect that, man. So, where do you want to be 6 months, a year from now? What do you see? What's the vision?
Um, I think I think more along the lines of a year. I think I want my bags to be pretty much packed. Um, I think within 6 months to a year, I think we're going to see a lot lower prices. So I want my bags to be packed, and I kind of just want to ride that train. I think till the end of 2024 to see where we're at, and then into 2025. Yeah, it's super rough, but I think that's kind of where I want to be. Just mainly bags packed and kind of just riding the train.
Oh man, I agree. I think that's the smartest thing, right? Is throughout this stretch, the crazy thing about crypto in general is that it's one of the most exciting spaces that you can possibly be plugged into, right? whenever it's hot, whenever it's moving, there's so much happening, you can barely keep up with it. And, even throughout the midst of this, the bear market that we've been in, there's still been a lot of action, right? Especially in certain niches and certain corners. But it hasn't necessarily been one of those things where, in the middle of the bear market, the same type of action for the general narrative just isn't there on the same level. So there are stretches where it can feel really monotonous, really, in a sense, boring whenever you're on here if you don't have that longer term vision of what you're planning on doing in this space and kind of understanding what it looks like on the other side. Because when it happens really fast. So were you playing at all with the meme coin type of stuff whenever it was happening the past month?
No, not really. I was definitely tempted, um, but luckily I didn't because I kind of knew that, they were just meme coins and, that it was going to be a fast train. So, and I'm not good at that stuff at all. I've always been burned. So I've learned my lesson and I just stayed away.
I respect that, man. What's going on, Mossy?
Kalyo. How do I pronounce your name? Kalyo?
I go with Kaleo, but Calio works, man.
Yeah. All right, so I have a question for you. Do you think this whole meme coin season and Pepe season, whatever you want to call it, was just a distraction from people buying cheap Dogecoin? Because there's no way this
Dude,
ends in this way.
so I need to tweet this out. I've been on the road a lot the past week. Haven't really been able to keep up with, really everything going on Twitter as much as I'd like. And I wouldn't say a distraction, but I think one of the things that Fiji was talking about that's important to remember is that in general, these meme coins, like, dude, Andrew Tate had the video earlier, and as much as some people may get irritated by it, he did speak a lot of truth while he was shitting on the crypto world, where a lot of these meme coins, the real purpose isn't necessarily to build this great community with these meme coins that are being spit out. Like, it's a PvP mentality where, at the end of the day, a lot of the meme coins just turn into this self cannibalization of, like, I was looking through Dex tools earlier this morning, and every single one of those big name memes have the exact same chart where, massive pump and then bleed out, bleed out, bleed out. So basically, what you see with a lot of other altcoins that are bigger, quote unquote, real utility purposes, but just on an accelerated scale. And that's one of those things where if you know how to play it, provides you with the opportunity to possibly be able to exploit that volatility, and it can be fun in the meantime. And I think I tweeted out something about this along these lines a few weeks ago, or last week or 2 weeks ago, where it's like, I respect anybody that was out there playing in the memes. I'm not going to hate anybody for going and doing it, because I think that is part of the fun of crypto, is chasing some of this, the volatility that it provides in different sectors while it's there. But if anybody is out there saying that they are buying a meme coin and they're going to be a long-term holder and supporter of whatever meme coin it is, that's just pure bullshit. It truly is, because either one, you just that person is one of a few things, right? Either one, they're a complete liar because they know full well that they're just planning on dumping that whenever it reaches a certain level, and they're getting out of it. And they know full well what the cycle of a meme coin is going to be, and they are going to dump it. Two, they're completely ignorant. They have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They haven't been in this space for long enough to see that these meme coins just fall apart. Like, it's what they do. And so you're one or the other in that sense. There is no in between that I can really conceptualize with a lot of them. So in a sense, are they a distraction from some of the more established things? that you're talking about, like either Doge or, Bitcoin especially, yeah, like they definitely can be if somebody somehow does buy into that vision of these things actually being a replacement for something like that. I think with these type of cycles, you might get one that sticks out of all of these, right? Like say that Pepe does end up surviving and sticking around, kind of like what Shib did back in the day. You get one because even like Shib, think along the lines of what all popped up around the same time. You had Cummies, you had Safe Moon, a bunch of these other big name memes that were big time, right? Brought a lot of these normies. It's all TikTok could talk about during the period that they were all moving. And realistically, only one has survived out of that group. And I look at it from this cycle, and Pepe looks like it's going to be that one that does survive. And even its survival doesn't mean that it's going to not have an insane bleed from what the highs are. So, I kind of skating around the question, but everything can be a distraction. I think that's the important thing in this space is just having a longer term vision and understanding what type of asset you're investing in as you invest in it and what the potential that it actually has for a longer term type of play versus, shorter term type of play. So, did that answer your question, Matigos? I know I kind of went on a rant there for a bit.
Yeah. You made sense. It was a logical answer.
So, Fiji, I'm curious. Do you have any of your real life friends that are plugged into this space, or is it primarily just the degens that you met in crypto Twitter?
Oh, dude, not at all. They all hate crypto. They This is going to sound bad, but they're smart enough to understand that ETH is probably the future for, DeFi and stuff. But I think some of them look at the charts, once in a while. Um, but yeah, no, they all hate NFTs pretty much in general. They were definitely involved in the hype, and they were trying to flip and make a bag, and most of them didn't do too well. And I remember the Stonks had a run up to I think the .3 range. I forget when that was, but I told them I sold a couple wonkies, and they knew I was involved in the community before that. And I mentioned it to them while they were sitting on the couch, like three or four of them. I was like, "Hey, I just sold a couple, whatever," and they just kind of looked at me, and then just looked back at the TV like I didn't say a single word. So I was like, "Wow, this is brutal." I was like, "Okay." Never talking about that again. But yeah, no, I think, and I think a couple of them still have an ETH bag, and if it continues to go down, they're gonna hate it even more. So it's tough, and I try to just joke around with it just to kind of keep them involved. But yeah, I don't think they want anything to do with it at the moment.
So even I'm curious again. Like, when did you get plugged into this space? Was it this last cycle, like 2021 ish, 2022?
Yeah. So I was involved in, not really involved, but in 2018 when we went up that during that time, I was either starting college or still in high school. I can't exactly remember, but I didn't have that much money, so I couldn't really involve myself too well. So I kind of put it off, but I knew it was the future. And then the 2021 run came around. I was still in college, still didn't have any money really. Um, but I was definitely more involved. Um, and then now that we're coming down, I understand where we're at kind of in the cycle in the grand scheme of things. And I have a full-time job now, so I'm definitely more involved. And really, when you first dropped the Wonky Stonks in October of 21 is when I really, really started to get plugged in. And even a couple months before that, but that's really when I started to kind of get locked in.
Love to hear it, man. Yeah. So you got locked in around that time period, and you're right in the age range of early career, just graduating college. Still probably have a few friends that are that age, that they're still in school, haven't made the transition fully yet. And I think that's a really interesting age to be involved in this space, because you kind of are at the crossroads right now of people are getting money for the first time. There are people on the brink of making money for the first time. So I'm sure there's a little bit of from what I remember, whenever I first graduated, you basically had two polar opposites at that point. You had the friends that were willing to basically, kind of all in degen. I'm young. It's time to take a risk. And you had the friends that were pretty dang conservative, and I am not going to touch any type of investment unless it's in my 401k. I might buy like $1,000 worth of stocks here and there, but the rest is cash in the bank. That's what I trust. That's what I'm going to go with. And you had one or the other. There really wasn't too much of an in between. But you're right. Like, whenever you are in the early college days, there aren't too many people that are that plugged in. You had like a few guys maybe with internships that were making some money. Maybe they played a little bit with the stock market, but there really isn't too much of an in between. So I'm curious, do you think that, like, whenever you were making that transition, a lot of the friends that you have that give you a hard time about it right now, were any of those guys believers in the space, or from the get go, were they completely opposed to it and you were just a crazy friend that was talking about all this stuff that was happening?
I don't even think they so much believed it. They just saw the money signs and the potential, the potential of money to be made. So that's really what they focused on. They didn't, and it was, of course, all short term stuff. So yeah, they can't really focus on, the year, the long term view, the year out, 2 years out type deal. But yeah, it was basically, yeah, you're completely right on the friend group thing. I have a couple friends that yeah, they think cash is king, for they just think cash is king in general, and they only fill up the 401ks and the Roth IRAs and the savings account and stuff. I have a couple degen friends, but they're not as degen as you would think. They buy NFTs and they mess around with the meme coins, but they don't go all in. So it's a little half and half. But yeah, I definitely don't have any friends that see the long term vision, which sucks because I feel like I have a very good opportunity to make it next cycle, and I want to bring my friends along. Excuse me. If I make it and they don't, and they see the Big Lake and Bay with a Wonky Stonks wrap, they might be kind of pissed. But it is what it is. So.
Bro, the funny thing is, I got recruited to go help with my buddy's small mining operation this past week, right? And I didn't. Well, first off, he didn't tell me that we were completely building out like a new rig and other stuff for him in the first place. Didn't realize that that was part of the process. Thought he was just going up there, updating some of the firmware, doing a little bit else. And I didn't realize that I was signing up for, I guess nearly 4 days of full ass labor building new shit out, but learn new stuff in the process, taking some of the miners apart and working on, some the other build setup. But the funny thing is, he's into mining now as a small mining operation. But when I first told him about Bitcoin back in 2017, he laughed at it, right? And that entire year just gave me shit fully. He would make jokes about Bitcoin every time that we talked. And Bitcoin to me back then was this new, exciting thing. I was all in on the tech side of it, traded some too. But I was one of those guys where it was like CrossFit for me. I didn't really have this outlet with crypto Twitter. I didn't establish it until later that year. So my outlet was talking to everybody I knew and basically being a crypto evangelist with that. And again, it took him, he bought a little bit finally toward the top in early 2018. And to his credit, he continued buying throughout the bear market. I do remember getting a text from him during the COVID crash in March of 2020. I thought this shit was supposed to be digital gold and was supposed to be what combated inflation and the world collapsing. And it's heading straight to effing zero. I hate this. Like this is not what it's supposed to be. And hey, to his credit again, stuck with it. So he stacked Bitcoin throughout, but he had a period where it was probably a year and a half of transformation from hate to disbelief to curiosity to acceptance. So I'm curious, have you seen any of your friends that have kind of made that transformation themselves, or anybody that you're like, okay, yeah, this next cycle comes around and they're going to be the guys that are the ones that are going to be, that don't want to hear anything right now, but they're going to be asking me the most questions here in, a year and a half, 2 years from now?
Yeah, for the most part. I have one friend that he's a quote unquote investor. Like he buys like comic books and just all kinds of other random things that he thinks can make money in the somewhat near future. And I've told him about a couple altcoins, like I don't know, mentioning Chainlink or Ethereum or something like that, and that kind of piqued his interest a little bit, especially when I told him the price of what it is now versus what it was at the previous all-time high. So I think my friend is going to fit your friend's role pretty well. I just hope he can hang on to his bag long enough, which is the only thing. But yeah, I think that answers your question, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, but I will say, like, that's the interesting thing that you'll see on the other side of this, because you entered in during the peak. During the peak, everybody's semi-interested. If you're talking about it, popular conversation topic. Right now, where it's not the peak, it's easy for everybody to just completely dismiss it. But what you're going to see, the transformation, especially when you're getting a couple years more removed and people are a little bit more mature in their workplace or works line of work, and they have a little bit of extra savings, a little bit of extra capital to be able to invest with, you're going to see a higher peak in interest as this next cycle comes around. So it's something that you definitely, I wouldn't say that when it happens immediately that it is a top, but from a time perspective, maybe not from a monetary perspective, but definitely from a time perspective, as you're getting more and more of those people that start asking questions, it definitely gets closer to a peak. So it's one of the signs that it's like I think it's an exercise for anybody in the audience. Think through those people and kind of rank them off in your head of like who would be the most likely and who would be the least likely. So the most likely, hey, good for them. Maybe they are a little bit of an early adopter, but by the time the least likely person starts asking you, hey, probably a decent time to start selling some of those bags and de-risking, even if the prices aren't what you wanted, or hey, even if the prices are what you wanted, but you're a little bit greedy and you think that they're going to go a bit higher, that's probably a decent time to sell out of it. And it's one of those rules of thumb, dude. I swear, actually the guy that I'm talking about right now, funny enough, I never mentioned any of these meme coins to him. I don't really like to talk about crypto outside of crypto Twitter. So he he texted me one day, and I nearly tweeted this out. But he was like, "Hey, have you heard of Ben?" And he has no idea who BitBoy is, none of the other stuff. But he asked me if I had heard of Ben. I can, pin to the exact within an hour of when he texted me that. It was within an hour of the exact Pico top of Ben, whatever he texted it to me. So, it is, people joke around about it being a rule of thumb, but there really is some truth to it.
That's pretty crazy. I did like just on the time perspective. I mean, that's within an hour. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, man. So I don't know. I texted him a whole long ass response about, I swear to God, I hope you invest in this, and I hope everything that you put in there, every single last penny of it goes to zero. I just had this whole rage text response back to Yeah, I'm kind of glad I did because like it ended up working out. But I was just so infuriated at the fact I actually thought BitBoy founded Ben. I didn't even realize that he got suckered into it, and I'm still sitting here wondering if those numbers are actually real. If he actually purchased the rights to that shit coin for 1,000 ETH plus 250K of stables, that would be the maybe worst deal I've ever heard in my life. That sounds like an awful, awful acquisition.
Hey, I got a question for you, Calio. Not to change the
let's hear it.
subject, but so I'm trying to convert my mom into a Bitcoin maxi. She's starting to invest and stuff, and she's up there a little bit in age, but she's got some decent amount of time. How would you go about converting her, maybe not to a maxi, but just to open up her eyes to what Bitcoin is? How would you tackle that, or just a family member in general?
Man, I think that really one of the things that opened up my eyes to begin with was I listened a lot of oh my goodness, how Andreas Antonopoulos, and I read Internet of Money. And even if she's not the type of person that loves to read and dive into that type of stuff, I think that there's some really good truth in some of those basic conceptual talks that carries over really well to what the importance of Bitcoin on a longer time frame is, right? And why it's something that's not going to just die out, unless something like quantum computing is engineered and completed on a massive scale in the next several years, which, the thing about quantum computing, everything that I have seen, it looks like it's a lot, in my opinion, further off than what people are giving it credit for. But, like that's realistically the only thing that I can think of as a FUD case for Bitcoin on a higher time frame scale. Outside of that, but at the point that that's released, really, like what safety measures that we have in place for just about anything, what is safe? I don't know. I like it. So that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself. I don't think you bring up the quantum computing counterpoint. But outside of that, like, dude, you just within the bounds of what we know and what we've seen, I think that just the basic conceptual arguments for how, like the decentralized nature of it, the math behind the hard cap, you can talk about inflation. And like that's a really easy one. Look at how the government has printed more than 50% of the US money supply in the last several years since COVID, right? You can say, hey, they've printed 50% more money. What do we have backing that money, right? Because a lot of people ask, what is it that backs Bitcoin, right? What backs any currency is the belief behind it, the collective belief, right? The collective, and it's one of the things that I think the Internet of Money talks about really eloquently there at the beginning is just the transformation of what is money, what is currency, what has it been over the years, right? Like, there was a certain period of time where people used certain types of seashells as currency because they had X amount of scarcity within that region of the world. And, all of us may laugh at the fact that there was ever any type of civilization that would use seashells because you could just go and potentially go pick out some more and say, well, hey, here's X amount more of this, and you're all of a sudden rich. But it made sense to that group of people in time for the reason that they were like, hey, this is collectively scarce. Collectively, we agree that it represents X form of money. I mean, you could even say the same thing about paper noted money, right? Like the fact that we accept paper for anything, a sheet of paper and say, hey, this $100, what effectively can it do? So the exact same type of thing with Bitcoin with this, at least we know transparently what the scarcity of the asset is. We know that no one individual person can shut it down and say, you don't have access to this anymore. You cannot spend this amount of money. you cannot do XYZ with it. It's permissionless in that sense. And I think from the whole crypto punk mindset perspective, there's real intrinsic value to that. So I think that kind of going conceptually down that rabbit hole of what is money, where do you find value in anything? If that's one of the things that she finds difficult to believe, that it's a real eye-opening question for a lot of people because they don't really have solid answers for it.
No, you hit the nail on the head. And I don't think she does either. She's big into real estate, so she understands the value of real estate itself. But I just need her to widen her horizon, on assets in general. And, I think she's a baby boomer. I don't know. She's like 45, 50. So whatever that is. So they're automatically not behind the whole idea of an electronic currency. But I've even mentioned to her, well, you just look at, you look at your phone, you pull up your bank account, and you have that digit there, and you buy something on Amazon, and it's basically the same thing, but that currency is just tied to basically where you live, and the country that you reside in, versus I guess a decentralized currency, if you would like to put it that way. So I'm definitely going to buy that book. I'm going to give it a read first, just so I understand it, and then definitely going to give it to her. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, man. I got a question for you. So I'm not sure if you were really old enough, but do you remember? I guess you were probably in middle school about the time Venmo came out. Maybe, yeah, you had to have been, right? Like, because it came out around 2014, 2015 was the first time I used it. So that'd be like late middle school for you, early high school, maybe.
2015, graduating high school, basically.
Okay, so you were in high school then. So around that time period, did anybody that use it?
I don't think so, not at all.
Okay. Even back then, man, I didn't have many people that used it, right? Like it was around the time period that Uber came out, Venmo came out. I remember like I just graduated college not too long before that. And I went to a lot of my friends. I wanted that free. They gave you like $5 or $10 for referring a friend. So I would refer as many friends as I could to use it. And I would just stack up some cash doing that. It was like a really passive way of doing it. And every single time I tried to onboard somebody to Venmo, there was a lot of resistance at the beginning. People were like, there's no way. I don't want to trust anybody with my bank account. How do I know that they're actually sending money with this? Is it real? Is there some type of scam behind it? So even though it was with cash, it was directly related to your bank account. There was just kind of this lack of, knowledge and trust associated with it, where people didn't even really buy into the belief that Venmo was something that could be used. And now, I mean, it's something that, like, I think every single person that has access to a bank account, everybody knows what Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, they know what all those apps are, right? Like, it is the most common way of being able to pay people back. You don't pay your average friend back with cash. So
right.
I think that there's just this general fundamental understanding that has to kind of be breached, for onboarding the next X amount of million users to Bitcoin. And whether that be your mom, somebody else like that, I think that's kind of what we're still experiencing right now. There are people that have heard about it, but there are a lot of people that just conceptually don't understand, well, what exactly is there behind this that provides any type of value? How can I trust this? How do I know that they're not going to just print X amount more one day? Same can be said for the Stonks.
Crazy. Right. Inevitable.
Inevitable, baby. All right, so we got Stud Muffin up here. We also got Too Easy. I'm going to go to Stud first, and I'm going to go to Too Easy. What's going on, man? Touching grass.
Hey, what's up? What's up? Got a Friday off, so I'm hanging out with the kid right now, so I'm going to bounce off in a minute. But I just wanted to plug Balaji Srinivasan's book real quick. he made a really interesting innovation where the first part of the book is 1,000-word cliff notes, essentially. Then the second part of the book is a one-pager, and then you actually get into the book itself. So he literally created his own cliff notes for the book. And I think that's like the standard for what every book should do, is like, all right, if you want to try it, here's the try, and then, you know, break it down, and then, okay, here's the actual depth to it. But it's called The Network State. It's free on his website, and it's an incredible explanation of why Bitcoin is so important, and you know, why it's essential for kind of his concept of what the next form of government is likely to be. And it's pretty weird stuff and kind of complicated, but it's fun to get into. But he basically thinks that, you know, Bitcoin is as much a social change as it is an economic one. And so it's definitely worth, if nothing else, don't read the book, but at least read the one pager, you know, so you get an idea of what he's talking about.
And what's the name of it again?
It's called The Network State. And I'm sure you guys all know Balaji. He's the one that did that crazy, you know, Bitcoin's going to $1 million bet, all that kind of stuff. And he even admitted that was a dumb bet. I burned $1 million to draw attention to this. And, but he wrote the book probably 6 months ago. And it gets into a lot of different concepts. It's not just about Bitcoin, but in terms of one of the key value propositions to Bitcoin, it definitely gets into that really nicely. It's a fun read.
Yo, appreciate that, man. I think that like that's the real difference between somebody that's here right now versus somebody that is just here during the euphoria phase. I think that the people that come during the euphoria phase and leave never take the time to really understand the fundamental concepts of crypto in general. Really, what is it that differentiates it other than its volatility, its price movements, kind of the feel of the Wild West? What even makes that possible? What's going to make it stick around? What are the real potential use cases of this stuff other than just being able to print, you know, your own shitcoin and put a random name to it and do whatever, other than, you know, creating some random JPEG and publishing digital art? Really, what is it that gives that digital art security scarcity in the first place? So I think that, you know, any of these type of knowledge plugs, like, dude, that's how you keep yourself entertained and informed throughout this period. That's what keeps you sticking around. So Stud Muffin, I'm curious, man, like what other material are you looking into right now?
So I just finished Network State, so that was kind of my big one. You know, as far as other crypto type stuff, I definitely want to get into the Bitcoin Standard. I haven't read that yet. I've been arguing with Nassim Taleb a lot, right? Because he wrote the intro to the Bitcoin Standard, and then he got in a personal argument with the writer of it, and now he hates Bitcoin. So it's funny how, you know, he kind of flipped around, and so I love kind of arguing with him and saying, you used to love this stuff, you know, what happened? So I think the Bitcoin Standard is definitely up next on my, you know, kind of my read list. I really liked Hard Money You Can't Screw With by Jason Williams. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He has it's an operation where they take old tires in North Carolina, melt them down, and the energy that is released is used to mine Bitcoin. And then the recycled tires, I think he gets money from North Carolina's state government for breaking down the tires, and it's this relatively clean process. And then all that energy released goes to mine Bitcoin. So those would kind of be the two that I would recommend the most and really enjoyed.
You know, appreciate those shout outs, man. I mean, I'm familiar with Jason Williams. I think he's going parabolic on Twitter, right? I don't.
That's him. He's the one who burned a Bored Ape to put it on the Bitcoin blockchain. I think it's an ordinal. That was kind of a crazy stunt.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it really does all loop back to, you know, whether it's your mom, your cousin, the people that you're with, one way or the other, it all boils back to education, right? Like that's what gets people to stick around. It's not the price action. You know, the price action's definitely an, you know, incentivizing side effect. But it's not necessarily the driving factor. I think that really the people that are incredibly passionate about it, that they lean back on. But steering the conversation a little bit to the side, we're talking about Bitcoin and kind of its value proposition and use case. Steering it back to the NFT space, I thought that this was interesting. I saw Luke Martin, venture coinist, post a comparison between the crowd at the main stage at the Bitcoin conference versus the main stage at VCon. And there is a stark contrast between the two, right? The main stage at the Bitcoin conference, just empty versus just this packed house at VCon. And the more I'm seeing that, the more genius I think I realize, and the more I'm a fan of these smaller city type of meetups like this for a conference, because I think it really does incentivize the community aspect a little bit more. I think that you see the difference between the Bitcoin area where, you host something in Miami, and don't get me wrong, Miami's fun. I've enjoyed it when I've gone down there. But other than saving the market, the real reason why I'm not there right now is because, dude, so much of it is just, these flashy, you know, extravagant, whatever, people trying to flex what they have or what they do, buying the most, the next most expensive bottle, going to, the trying to get the nicest table at the nicest or, the most popular clubs. And I'm not really like a club slash nightlife guy in the first place. I think it can be fun to go down there and to meet certain people, but dude, there's so much of the same there, and it's really not focused on the actual conference itself. I think that what I'm seeing about VCon and the NFT space and why it speaks differently. I don't think that it's just the fact that it's in a small city. I think so much of the NFT space is about the cross collaboration between communities and some of the other implications of just the when you're collecting, I guess there is some of that PvP mentality that comes into play, but I don't think that it's as prevalent. And I don't know. I just think that there's a real stark contrast and difference seeing a packed house in the middle of the bear market when NFTs really have not been doing great as a whole, and seeing that room filled with people. I mean, that's pretty encouraging to me for the space as a whole, right? Because it's something that's still exciting. There's still a lot of potential, a lot of possibilities that have barely been tapped into for the actual technology itself. And, you know, in the midst of it, this is what it looks like when price action doesn't reflect it. These are a group of people that understand what the real potential in this space is outside of just immediate up only price action. And I think that's the encouraging thing to look at, right? Because we all know what the market looks like when it's hot. So I can't think of too many people I know personally that are there. I think a few. But it does look like something I'm like, man, I kind of maybe actually want to go to VCon next year. I've laughed at it the past couple of years, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, that actually does look like something that's possibly worthwhile. It looks better than NFT NYC. Lander, welcome up to the stage, man. What's going on?
What's going on, guys? Hope everyone's having a great day. Callie, you just made a lot of good points. But one thing I was curious about what you said that, sorry, I'm pretty high right now, that communities, NFTs are about communities and collaborations of those communities. So are there any Wonky Stonk collabs coming up with any other projects in the near future or long-term future that you have in the works?
I mean, nothing directly right now, man. I think a lot of it is just being able to be supportive of whatever other communities are out there. I think again, like the key thing with the stonks and whether it's insane or not, I really do believe that the intrinsic value comes in the art, and it's something that really, like, I'm not looking to deviate from, right? Like, the roadmap is simple, that there is no roadmap along with it. And I obviously believe there's a lot more potential for what can and will be done with LedgArt as a whole. I'll listen to an interesting podcast recently where Bobby Hundreds was on the Tim whatever the Tim Ferriss show, right? And I actually never listened to Bobby Hundreds before, but he's the founder of the Atom Bomb Squad, and he actually made some really interesting points that I think do merit some type of consideration. Where, you look at any other type of artist, and if an artist only releases one collection or say one piece of work, and that's all that there is, none of the great artists that are out there have only ever released one work. The best way to continue to grow communities is to, especially as an artist, continue to release other works. And I do think that there's value in that for a brand, for a community as a whole, but it has to be done in a thoughtful way, as far as being able to, you have to be mindful of what the overall demand is and what the overall perception of each work as it happens is. But, it definitely is something where, I'm looking at it, and we've talked about it before, but there will be other collections that eventually come along with the Stonks. It's, but I think the most important thing that a lot of people have missed along with it, you look at, for instance, like NBA Top Shot back in the day. I think they're the prime example of this, where they had this really hot streak and they just started to dump and dump and dump more and more and more. And it wasn't really done in a very thoughtful way. I actually honestly think the group that I can think of that's executed this the most cleanly is Yuga. Though I think they pushed the limits with their other side sale. I think everything that they did up until that point was a real proof of concept of what it actually looks like, where they added a lot of value to their overall, to their initial collection by the way that they released further stuff down the road. So I think there is some important stuff there. And hey, maybe there are some opportunities for some type of cross community stuff within all of that. But, nothing. Nothing immediately. That I think it's something that, again, has to be mindful of where we are in the market, where we are with opportunities right now. And I don't want to say that it's never going to be a possibility, because I think that would be completely ignorant. But as far as where we are in the market right now, I don't think that it's the best time to really add anything new like that anytime short term.
Yeah, great answer. I definitely agree with you that a collection would not be the move right now. But I honestly did mean just in terms of like a party or like a shirt or like a space or something like that. Sorry if I wasn't clear, but great answer.
I don't know, man. Well, like, again, one of those things that gotta we'll see, man. I'm not sure. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But never completely ruled out. So but here's the deal, man. Like, one of the things that I think that is, like, again, as much as doing a bunch of these different events, like, I respect different communities for hosting a bunch of these different massive parties and massive events. I don't think that it's an incredibly sustainable concept. I respect anybody that does do some of those type of things, but I just don't see on a longer term scale how it's sustainable. I think that it's whenever you open up those type of things, it opens up a can of worms, right? Because whenever that becomes the expectation for a project, you basically have to continue to one up that expectation, right? And if it doesn't meet, so it's good for the pumponomics of something, I guess, from a short term perspective. But when you're looking at the longer term sustainability, it is just this continuous churn, versus if you're just talking about the art for something, again, like, going back to the traditional art world, it's, like it's not necessarily something that is, like, again, I personally am not the biggest fan of that model, but it doesn't mean that something can't ever be done.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. Great point.
So, Too Easy Trizzy, what's going on, man?
Yo, what's up, everybody? Shout out to Landers 76ers. I just wanted you to know that I was pushing the Wonky Stonks all through Vegas. I kept my word. Wore them every day, 0 washes. But honestly, I have a really tough story to share. My girlfriend, I'm not chilling here, but Ollie Pops, I guess it's like some sort of healthy soda that's good for your digestive system. And my Wonky Stonks shorts got liquidated. The first time that ever happened, I trusted a fart in the Wonky Stonks shorts, and now they honestly got their first wash. I'm kind of disappointed about it, but I'm an honest man. So there it is.
Bro, I won't lie. I was not expecting that. But damn, I'm sorry to hear that. That's, and that's tough.
I just want to make sure the Wonky community, just everybody's got my back, everything it was a tough scene, and there was nothing worse than looking down and being like, this is a mess. But it's still Wonkies till I die. I did wash them, but the loyalty is still there. And that's it. Other than that, I did have a quick question for you. With everything happening last week with Ledger, what's your stance on them? And if not Ledger, who would you trust?
I don't know, man. I mean, Trezor's always, and I think Trezor has actually been a more popular answer for me over the course of the past like couple of years anyway. Ledger's just done some sketchy stuff as far as, if not just their product offering, but their marketing as well. Like, dude, their product offering for a necklace for your ledger and actually having different influencers going around flexing their ledger necklaces and about how they love the style and the fashion for it. Dude, that's not what a ledger's for. Even an empty ledger, that's a terrible idea. Walking around in public with something that has potentially unlimited value, I think is way scarier than walking around with something that has a set value. You're making yourself a target in that sense. So I don't know, man. I don't like what they did with their security setting, or with the recovery and the potential for getting that out there, but it's not. I don't know. I think your ledgers are still safe, but I wouldn't use that product offering.
All right, thank you. That helps. I'll take a look into Trezor. I can't talk. That poop story really got me going. But yeah, I got to get going. I got a new puppy. I just wanted to say what's up, introduce myself, even if I'm the guy who sharded in his Wonky Stonk shorts. It's okay. There's nothing more real than the truth. So,
Bro,
that's
that's
just how it goes
legendary.
sometimes.
Getting up on stage and talking through that's even more legendary. So I appreciate you coming up here, man.
No problem. Wonkies till I die. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Love to hear it, man.
Yo, Kaleo, what's going on, guys? Pick God here.
Yo,
I
what's
just had a
up, Pick
quick
Up?
question, man. When you're talking about like the issuance of art over the course of a project, have you looked into like Open at all, like the Jack Butcher project? Because I was just reading a couple threads on it the last few days about
Talking about
how it's like,
Opepin
yeah, I don't even know how you pronounce it, man.
or
I think like
Opepin?
Opsin.
I don't know. Rooster would give me a hard time for saying Opepin. That's how I read it.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like the issuance of it, how it's like lotted, and there's a certain amount of pieces for each lot. I thought that was actually really cool, kind of going like really hardcore long term because I think it comes out to like 200 total drops. I don't know. Do you have any opinion on that? Because it's something I'm honestly thinking going to try and get into here relatively quick.
Honestly, man, I need to look and see what the latest stuff, because I feel like one of the things that he's done with it that I guess is pretty genius in a way is the constant evolution and transformation of that project, and about but it's one of those things, it again just conflates with my general idea and theory of, what I think there's something cool behind the permanence of the art, versus the evolution of it. But I think that it's just different sectors within the space. So it's definitely opened up my idea, or opened up my eyes for kind of getting me out of that one track train of thought that I've had for a long time about just pure permanence, and everything else is kind of just gamey mechanics and pumponomics and etc. Because I think there really has been something that has intrinsically been added to the collection by the transformation, by the evolution of the original art. So I'm not, again, there's been so much change with the way that they've implemented everything. I'm not fully up to speed with it. So it's something that I want to look into more, because there has been some sustainability with that success that's come along with it. But I really, to answer the end question of what does it look like on the long term, I'm not positive exactly what the final step is. Is it something that they have, said, hey, here is theoretically what the final drop and what the final transformation / evolution looks like? I know that they've done that with the Checks project, right? So have they done that with O'Peepin as well?
Not that I know of. I mean, kind of when I just think about the timeline, right? It's like lots of 80, so 200 drops. I feel like I don't even know when this project dropped, like beginning of 2023 maybe. So it's only like a couple months old, and I think they've done 2 lots so far. So like when I think about it, I think it would be really hard for them to give you a definitive answer like that, because I would think that these drops probably go on for like the next 2, maybe 3 years.
So when
If
you're
they're
saying
really gonna.
drops, are you saying adding to the initial collection, like the same
No,
exact?
so like at least my understanding is right. There's 16,000 total pieces in the collection, and basically like they're gonna put out like it's a part of the collection, but they do it in lots of 80. So you like apply essentially to opt in for a chance to get your art like transformed. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
So like at the pace they're going now, I think the project came out in the beginning of 23, so they've only done 2 lots. So there's, or yeah, 2 lots. So there's going to be 200 total. So I'm kind of thinking it's going to take a couple years. I don't know if they're going to ramp up the pace at some point or keep it consistent, but I think it's kind of interesting to see that, there's probably going to be some different collabs for some of the lots that they drop. Um, I don't know. So I just think it's a pretty interesting project. I kind of like the perspective they're taking.
No, man, it's definitely interesting and something I need to look into more. Yeah, dude, even being gone this past week, and I say this every time that I've got to take a couple days off, like stepping back in after this last week and just catching up on everything going on, even though it's been kind of the bear market and there hasn't been a, crap ton of activity, but still a decent amount. It's kind of wild just seeing a lot of the stuff that happens. You feel behind on a lot of different stuff. So, um, even looking and seeing what's happening with this stupid psyop token, dude, I can't believe that guy was able to actually get people to send him that much ETH, and the way that he's actually implemented it. It's actually kind of satisfying. I hate to see it, because there's part of you that's like, man, I wish the guy was kind of honest with the whole process, and he actually did put as much value as he could from that raise back into the project. But dude, it was not that whatsoever. It looks like it is a complete rug. And there's the sad part about it is that's a lot of ETH that could have extended some of the meme season potential. It looks like it was literally just funneled and drained into one asshole's wallet. But there are a lot of people that hopefully learned a valuable lesson in the process, paid their tuition, and won't do that type of bullshit again because, dude, that was absolutely stupid. um, but yeah, man, my biggest thing at the end of the day, and what I think is beautiful about the stonks in general, is the issue of the permanence. Going back, even looking at the crypto punk type of mentality of, here are these punks that were released, and here is like after they've released, what is a lot of people that looked at the art originally, and myself included, when I first saw CryptoPunk, and I said, how in the world does this hold any type of, why does anybody want to hold this in their wallet, right? Why would anybody ever want a CryptoPunk? These are just pixelated pictures of individuals on a screen that it's ridiculous, that anybody would even want to associate their identity with that, let alone collect it. And as time has progressed, understanding the historical significance of the piece has transformed the perception of the art, right? Where it truly does become a flex. I think that they look badass now. And the evolution of it wasn't necessarily associated with any type of transformation in the utility of the project. It wasn't some type of transformation in the utility of some events that they were hosting or any other type of, internal swag. It was some type of transformation in the understanding of the significance of the history that also transformed the significance of the art itself. So that's my real vision with the stonks, and something that I really believe, does have merit. That there are enough projects that are competing in the space of doing other, things that are continuously going to let down communities by not performing to whatever expectations that are evolving in those communities' minds. I think they release a lot of empty promises just to try to keep people happy in that mindset. And I think that, there is importance in being able to stick to, and it's not easy, man. Like, it is tempting to veer off that roadmap a lot of the times of not having a roadmap, right? But in the end, whether it's insane or not, I think that it's the best way, the best approach, at least for this. Again, not saying anybody can't do anything differently with something else and be successful with it. But, like, that's the vision that I have for the stonks. And, I do have a conviction that, like, it will it'll manifest itself one way or the other. Like, that's why when I say the stonks are inevitable, I really do believe it. You look at a lot of other founders, a lot of other projects that have gone through the same type of evolution that the stonks have gone through, and dude, they've died out, right? Like, whoever released the project, whatever they've done with it, like, they've stepped away completely, whether it's the community or the founder or whoever. It just has happened. And, like, there's a reason why I have not left the stonks, why I never will, right? Like, so that's, talked about it like last summer, whenever the market was down and everything was sideways. And dude, it's the exact same type thing right now, right? Like, the market as a whole is still relatively sideways / down. And, the stonks are chilling in this consolidated range. And, they're not in any type of price discovery or anything else. But, like, dude, I said this even when the stonks were going through massive, the move back in December / January, that it didn't really matter to me where exactly the price was, because I believe in the overall vision, one way or the other. And if it means any type of price being down, for an extended period of time and letting people be able to accumulate in a certain region, even better, right? Like, because it's one of the things where, the stocks aren't going away. I'm not leaving the project. If it were ever defined by where the price was or by, how much money that, the stocks were generating, dude, I never would have, continued with the project in the first place, right? Like, it's more of a money suck or a time suck than anything else. But like, dude, I love it, right? Like, I think the general passion and the general belief is what drives me for it. So, I think that's what's unique about the community, and really what continues to just, fire me up about the future. So, but yeah, on that, on that little rant, I may go ahead and wrap up the space for the day. I think I'm going to try to do a stream here a little bit later this afternoon / maybe this evening. So I'm trying to get back into that this next week. I think I'm going to try to. My goal is to do a stream every single morning this next week, except for I may be on the road weekend with Memorial Day and stuff coming up, at least throughout the week. So be on the lookout for that as well. But appreciate everybody that came up here on stage, participated. You guys are the real ones. Same with everybody in the audience. And at the end of the day, Wonky Stonks are inevitable.